Hey, what is going on, guys? It is the Nicholas Prasakis Chelsea Football Channel, and welcome today to a more of a transfer review or overview going into the January window and what we might expect. There's two deals as it stands that look as though they are possibilities or more have a chance of happening, and we're going to read two articles of two moves that could happen. Of course, over the international break, news ends up getting a little bit it slows down, of course, as players are overseas and playing for their national teams. News isn't there for your favorite teams. Of course, so Chelsea over the years, there's been a lot of news in certain aspects. Of course, we've had to deal with the owner saga, how they want to buy each other's stocks over one of the international breaks. And over the last one, there wasn't as much news, of course. Of course, I think also we got the Wesley Fofana news in one of the international breaks where he almost left to go to Marseille this summer. But that's past us. We're starting to become more of a not a banter club, but more of a team that has slowly transitioned to becoming a more normal team when it comes to getting crisis news. Not a team that you constantly have to be feared for certain, not just results, but news revolving the team. So it's been really good to say that over the last few months and able to stay this consistent. It's able to get out of the players' minds whether or not their jobs might be at stake on the team. So today, mostly it's going to be around two transfers. What is going on with Christopher Nkunku, and who is this center back that Chelsea might be going after in January? So the first piece of news we have is revolving around young center back Tomas Araujo from Benfica. Of course, I think the last player we technically brought in from Benfica, I'm almost certain was Diego Moreira. Of course, Diego Moreira is now a member of our theater club Strasbourg, where he's been, I'm pretty sure, pretty good there. And of course, Enzo Fernandez came from there, and Thomas Araujo could be on the list of players that come in to bolster reinforcements. Of course, I've been a little bit of a stickler when it comes to the center back position over the last few months because I haven't really been, the fan of how Badiashile, how Disasi, and not really Tosin. I think Tosin's been very good, but in a way, I think we should have really four really decent center back options. And we haven't really gotten that kind of consistent play out of them. And I think there's a good chance you might see Disasi or Badiashile leave this window or this upcoming window. So possibly this guy could be the next replacement and a guy who also can have a good playing time. So Thomas Araujo, who is he? I've heard of him before only because of FM, of course, for the people who play FM, it's Football Manager. And he's a pretty good young talent on there if you do use him. He's very good at ball playing. Let's see what the article has to say about him, of course. As Chelsea navigates challenging Premier League season, whispers of winter reinforcements grow louder, with Araujo emerging as a primary target. He's attracted considerable attention across Europe, and he's only 22 years old, so he fits inside that plan that the owners still want. Multiple Premier League clubs like Newcastle, Crystal Palace have also drawn interest in him. It looks as though he swiftly climbed the ranks of Benfica, and he's established himself as a crucial part of the first team after basically coming up from their B team. Of course, Benfica have, and I think Porto, Sporting, and Benfica all have pretty. Their B teams are all very, very high in the pillar of Portuguese soccer. They're like I think in the second tier or third tier, so they all play in pretty good leagues. So he was still playing in a pretty reputable league because he was still playing in their second tier. His solid form has earned him 8 caps for the U21, underscoring his potential in the international stage. So he's getting good looks. Not like even Vega has gotten a cap yet so far for the Portuguese national team. I wonder if he were to get that move, he'd get a similar thing. Jan Vertonghen, of course, former Tottenham player and Benfica defender, offered high praise, suggesting Araujo has the potential to be one of the best defenders in the world in a year or two. That's an outstanding. It says it's such a combination from an experienced Premier League player should say a lot about how good a player he possibly could be. Of course, Jan Vertonghen was a very good, not amongst the world's best at center back, but you know, to basically say he could be better than him, is very very high praise. Um, Chelsea are aware of this potential, reportedly in love. I saw reports that they were saying they were in love um, with Araujo. It's funny that they keep saying using the words in love because of course Maresca said he was basically in love with Wesley Fofana, And now they're kind of saying it about Tomas Araujo. So maybe it's a thing with these center backs. They're saying that the young defender contemplating a move would trigger his 83 million. I'm saying 83 million pound because, of course, we're talking more in pounds because it's English soccer. His release clause is 83 million pounds. That is expensive. That's not just any normal release clause. Would they charge that? I don't think so. I'd have to look and see how many games he's played this season. I'm sure he's played his fair share of games for Benfica so far this season as a starter. But at the same time, man, we don't need a defender that bad to the point we should spend 83 million. That's around, I think, how much in total we spent on Badiashile and Disasi together. So replacing him with one option is fine, but the thing is, for 83 million is way too much money. So if we were to bring this guy in, I'd love to see it for a cheaper fee. Uh, Beyond raw talent, it aligns with the Chelsea strategy. Of course, we're just talking about it because it fits their youth plan. They need to find a way to create more competitive in the Premier League, of course, because it's basically in the Premier League, the only guys who started there is Levi Colwill and Wesley Fofana. But of course, Tosin had to start one game due to the suspension of Wesley Fofana. Of course, as I said, first choice center backs. And of course, it looks like additionally Benoit Badiashile and summer signing Tosin Adarabioyo at depth, but the club's desire for an additional center back is very prevalent. Of course, I don't think that he would start right away, and I think we'd also have to sell one or two center backs if we were to bring this guy in. But there's a very good chance, and it looks like it could possibly happen. Um, and for this guy, I'm very happy. It's a center back, and that's a position I think we really should be looking at to get more depth in. I don't know too much about him outside of FM and knowing his name, but if he's been showing good strides, and a guy like Jan Vertonghen is talking about him to become one of the better center backs in the world, you know, I don't think it's a horrible option. I honestly don't want them spending that much money, but at the same time, we'll have to see what kind of options are out there. Um, However, Chelsea transfer pursuits aren't entirely unopposed, with Newcastle also monitoring the situation. January could bring a bidding war. Now, that's something I don't want to happen. I don't want this deal becoming a bidding war. If we have to go over the release clause to buy this guy, or you wouldn't go over the release clause, right? You can't pay more than the release clause. I'm sure. I'm sure you can't, but I don't want to bring a bidding war with another club, especially for a player who's so unproven. Of course, he could be so good, but I don't. It depends. If they're saying he's going to be this good, maybe you decide to spend that money. And these scouts have been on something these last few months. Of course, with all these strikers that have now been absolutely blinding, like Jean Duran, some with Marodion. Those guys have been killing it for their teams. So maybe you give them the benefit of the doubt. But if you look, where did they say anything about his stats? The analysis looks like they say he's more of a technical prowess, temperament, could also add resilience and reliability at fans. So it looks like they're saying he's just going to be a very solid option. But I wonder what kind of option they how or what kind of player he would bring. And I think would they if they spend that kind of money, he's going to be rotated in and out of the lineup. But how often is the question? If they were to spend 83 million pounds, he would have to play quite a bit. Um, and right now, I'd rather just see Levi Colwill and Wesley Fofana. I'd rather just see another guy come in as a rotational option, not to take their places. I'd love to see them still play together. Three has to do with Christopher Nkunku. And of course, I think a few of us have already heard about this news. And basically, Manchester United inquired, I think, about how much money it would cost to get him to go from Chelsea to the red side of Manchester. And well, it looks like the Blues have given him a price. I'm not sure if it says it in this article, but I read another article saying that they basically want to get their money back. It's that simple. They paid around 60 million pounds for him. But let's see what they have to say in the sportscasting first. So in L'Equipe, of course, one of the more French reputable sources say the French international is seriously considering his future at Stamford Bridge. And if I were, Christopher Nkunku right now, I'd be thinking of why am I not good enough to be in the Premier League starting 11 in a daily basis? Of course, we know he's not a striker at this point, but he can't play because of Cole Palmer. The problem is, how do you decipher who you want to play and how do you fit him in? It's almost impossible because you don't put him on a wing, and Nkunku can't play wings. You can't put him at Palmer's position because Palmer's so good there. Of course, Palmer can play on the right, but he's not as useful. And of course, he's not a striker. And Nico Jackson has done so much up top that you can't put him there either. So at this point, when he's in the middle of his prime, of course, 26 years old, it's I think he's 27 now, if I'm not mistaken. But it's again one of those things where he's the top scorer of the current team. He is currently the top scorer, most goals in the team this season. I think he's got 10. So it's one of those things where you got to be thinking to yourself, well, what does he do to get into this lineup? And I'm not sure if he sees a way that he can get into the lineup right now. It looks like they say incoming Red Devils boss Ruben Amorim will reportedly test their league rivals' resolve once he officially takes over at Old Trafford. Visa paperwork complications have delayed the Portuguese gaffer's start. It looks like it could be a move that they want to bring in for him. I wonder how he'd fit into their lineup because he plays a 3-4-3 formation. Might have to bring that up in the podcast with Sebi because I wonder what he would think about Nkunku coming to Manchester United. Of course, I wouldn't want to give them a player of his quality. If the latest transfer Nkunku news does hold any weight, Manchester United will enhance their attacking options considerably with this addition. Of course, he's a fantastic player who most Chelsea fans would like to see starting. It's just that it's almost impossible, like I said, for him to get into this lineup. And again, I personally think it says that Red Devils need to add. Yep, they still need to add much needed firepower. I agree, but when he comes in, I don't. He runs two wingers, two midfielders, but he wouldn't be with a midfielder in Nkunku. So I wonder if he wouldn't go up top either. So I wonder how they would use him. I really wonder how they use him. They say Nkunku is rumored to be disheartened with his lack of minutes under Maresca. The Italian has preferred. Yes, he has. Amazingly, of course, like I just said, he's the top scorer after he only, in all competitions for us this season. But of course, he's barely played in Premier League games. So he kind of of course, you'd feel like, hey, I'm still scoring goals. How am I not getting the opportunities? Um, the most obvious stunning block will be the West Londoners' willingness to let go of him to a direct rival, even more in the January transfer window. Of course, I think you'd probably have to sell him for a higher price as well because he's a rival. One time will tell if the move actually comes to fruition, but it's certainly a story worth keeping an eye on, especially over the weeks over the festive period. It definitely is. It is a story that, us fans, we have kind of been expecting at least one or two players to, this come out to happen. Of course, I thought that Nkunku would have been the first one. If not, I think the next one will be Joao Felix. That's another time for another day, but I think there's a good chance that he's one of those two guys, and it's been so far Christopher Nkunku. Personally, I don't know how much this story holds. I feel like I said, I think it'd be a great move for Manchester United. However, I'm not sure how he fits into their team because, of course, like we've noted, he's not really much of a striker. Of course, he played there more as a false nine at Leipzig, but the problem is I don't think that Manchester United plays soccer that way. I don't think they do it. And of course, like I've said, he doesn't play wingers. So would Ruben Amorim can't come in and move more guys into the attacking midfield positions, or would he keep them out wide? Because like I've stated, Nkunku is not really a winger. He could play there, but yeah, he doesn't do a job like a winger does. So I don't think it'd be in that way a good move for him. And of course, he's not, like I said, he's not going to play in a pivot with another midfielder. The waste of his talent, and it's more of a defensive minded position in that system. So I don't think it would be another good spot for him to play. Yet again, another not a good move. So I think Nkunku needs to stay here and keep fighting. And of course, I've loved this guy. He's a brilliant player. Again, back-to-back seasons where he was the best player in preseason, and so far he's been brilliant playing in games he's rotated in the Premier League, off the bench, of course, saving a few games for us and playing really well in cup games. So personally, I can't see a way that he makes this move so early and he doesn't give more of a chance to the manager and possibly maybe even some injuries happen. He comes into this team. But as it stands right now, I don't like it. I don't think it's a good move for him. And I'd like to see him stay here for the foreseeable future. So let me know what you guys think. I think that in right now, I think either move or very low on the fence, of course. As it stands, I think if I had to give a rating of how much I think these moves would even happen, I think the Araujo one right now is like a 4 to 10. I think that they said they have good momentum to buy him, but it's about whether they want to sell guys in January to bring in another center back. And right now, I don't think they do. I think they want to stick with who they have. Um, if I think they were Chelsea were going to sell a center back, I think they would probably sell DCC before they would Shield, but that's just my personal opinion. Um, and I think that if they had to sell Nkunku, I think currently as well, that's also a 4 out of 10. I don't think that if he were to go Manchester United, they would have to pay a heavy price, and I'm not sure they're worth willing to pay it. Especially, I mean, of course, they want to make sure this the new manager has a chance to buy players, but it's about whether they're going to give him that money right away to go out and spend. And January is a hard time to buy players because of how much it usually costs to put to pry players away for mid-season. So we'll have to see what happens. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.